Hello everybody and welcome to this session with the Charity for Civil Servants and Vital Nutrition. We're into week 3 now of our 4-week reset and we're very thrilled to have Jane back with us for this session. Before we get started, just a couple of little things about the charity itself. So many of you will have joined these sessions before, so bear with me while I run through this information. For some of you this might be new information, so we just want to make sure that you know who we are at the charity while you're engaging with this presentation as well. The charity is now in its 140th year. This is our 140th anniversary year. And in all that time since our start, our aim has been to support civil servants and their families through difficult times. We do that in a range of different ways, offering access to all sorts of support from financial assistance through money advice, well-being and caring support, and much, much more. Some of our services can be picked up straight off our website. Others might need a little bit more detail so that we can tailor the support to you. It's important to know that we're not a membership organisation. All current, former and ex-civil servants have access to request our support for the whole of life, and we also want to extend that to their financial dependents as well. So for today's session, just a couple of things to let you know. Jane's very happy to get your comments through the session and any questions that you might like to ask her. So if you want to use the Q&A button at the top of your screen, submit your questions and comments and we'll come to them at the end of the session. This is quite a brief session today, just 30 minutes. So after Jane's finished, we'll hopefully still have maybe 5 or 10 minutes for anything that you want to share or want to ask, and we'll try and get that answered. Please note that if you don't want to have your name showing against your question or your comment, you can use the anonymize button, so we won't see a name. It'll just come through with your question. And if you prefer, if you require to have closed captions, you can do that on your screen so that you can see that without anybody else being affected. So to do that, please use the more button at the top of your screen, the 3 little dots, press on that, select language and speech, and then select closed caption, and you can have that for yourself through the session. But without further ado, I'm going to get out of the way and I'm going to let Jane take over for this session, week 3 of the 4-week reset.
Thank you, Lisa. Right, I'm just going to share my screen. We will get kick-started. So hopefully, yep, okay. So hi, everyone. So as Lisa said, this is week 3 of our 4-week reset. And if you have been following from the start, you know that you get some homework. So I give you something to focus on each week with this. And I just want to check in with you as we go and see how things are going. And then we're going to move on to the next part of this. So hopefully by now, if you've been following along the 4-week reset, you've made some changes. You've got perhaps a little bit of a different focus in terms of your diet and your nutrition, or maybe it's just giving you a little spring start in terms of optimum nutrition. So let's just check in with our focus, check in with our homework. Last week, we were talking about the importance of protein on your plate and also about the timing of your meals. So the idea of getting enough protein at every single meal means that our blood sugar levels are really nicely balanced, that we feel fuller for longer, we tend to be able to have more focus and concentration, but it also really affects our energy as well. So it might be that just nudged a little more protein onto your plate, or maybe you were more aware of making sure that you were ticking the protein box at every meal. And just a reminder that sources of protein can either be animal-based or plant-based or a mixture of both. Really, the more variety we have in our diet, the better. So just your protein sources can be things like eggs, meat, fish, chicken, dairy products like natural or Greek yogurt, and cheese, especially cottage cheese, feta cheese. They're great sources of protein. The goal for protein, it might be that you're counting, you're kind of doing a food diary on something like MyFitnessPal, and you're really focused on getting your 25 to 30 grams of protein at each meal. Or maybe this week you just put your attention there a little more and just, as I said, just tick that box. And then we also talked about the timing of our meals. So making sure that you're eating to fuel yourself properly, eating breakfast and trying to shift your eating window a little earlier so that we stop eating earlier in the evening and we're not grazing right up to bedtime. So just let me know in the Q&A, in the chat box. We'll use the Q&A as we go. But just, I wonder what changed for you this week. Where was your attention? What did you change? What did you shift on your plate? What did you take out of last week's session? What was your focus of the week? How did you get on? And I'll check in with you on that shortly. Just while we're going through this, just let me know, where was your focus for the week and how did you get on? So this week, we are moving our attention to fiber. And in week 1, we talked quite a lot about the blood sugar roller coaster, and that kind of sets the scene for the 4-week reset. Our stabilizers for blood sugar are protein, which is where our focus was last week, and fiber, which is where our focus is this week. When we think about fiber, quite often we think about whole grains and wholemeal bread and things like that. And there are 2 different types of fiber. So we've got soluble fiber, which is found in things like fruit and vegetables, nuts and seeds, things like oats, for example, and it does what it says on the tin. So when we put soluble fiber into water, it dissolves, it forms a gel. And then we have insoluble fiber, and that, I suppose, is what we used to think of as roughage, or, you know, the kind of like the seeds and the whole grains and the husks of grains, for example. And that the 2 types of fiber work very differently, but we need a balance of both. So your soluble fiber is the one that has got such an impact on blood sugar balance. So it helps to stabilize blood sugar and insulin levels. It also has been shown to have anti-inflammatory effects, helps support better cholesterol, but it also makes us feel fuller for longer, because it forms this gel in our tummy, in our stomach, and it means that we feel more satiated, more satisfied by what we eat. So if we've got protein and fiber at each meal, it really fills you up and it makes you feel like you've had a decent meal, you've had enough to eat. It's a little bit like, you know, we talk about, there has been a lot of talk over the last couple of years about GLP-1 agonists for weight loss. And one of the things that has been a highlight there has been reducing the food noise and reducing cravings. If you want to do that naturally through food, tick the protein box and fill up on fiber. The other sort of fiber, the insoluble fiber, is the stuff that really supports digestion. And it acts a little bit like, I always think insoluble fiber acts a little bit like a yard brush. So it helps to keep things moving, and it will really support your digestive function. We need a balance of both types of fiber, really important. So the more fiber that we can ease into our diet, the better. And I definitely mean ease. Only 10% of the UK population get enough fiber on their plate. Most of us fall way short. We're meant to have 30 grams of protein a day. And this kind of can start to, again, it's a bit like the protein thing. I don't really want you to count numbers so much, but just be more aware. Just put your focus on it. So generally speaking, most of us do not get anywhere near enough fiber. And there's some surprising sources of fiber that we're going to look at today. So let's just do a little bit of I just want you to do this in your own head. I want you to think about fiber sources. So I've already given you quite a few: nuts and seeds and whole grains, fruit and vegetables, for example, beans and lentils. But some of the fiber, I think I said protein there, didn't I? Some of the fiber content of foods might surprise you. So we tend to think of porridge oats as being a brilliant source of fiber, which it is. So remember, we're aiming for 30 grams in a whole day. So if we eat 3 meals a day, we want about 10 grams of fiber in that meal. So 2 tablespoonfuls of chia seeds will give you 10 grams. That gives you a third of your fiber content of the day. And 1 cup of oats gives you 4 grams. So you can see, you can see how it would soon add up, but also maybe where the surprises are. It might be that you sort of associate whole grains with more fiber. Then fruit and vegetables. And while all fruit and vegetables are amazing and wonderful for fiber intake, and we want to be aiming for at least 5 portions a day, there are some fruit and vegetables that have a little more fiber than others. And this one might surprise you. So an avocado, 14 grams, an apple, 4 grams. So again, you've got nearly half your fiber intake if you have 1 avocado a day. Brown rice or lentils. I wonder which one you think is higher in protein. I keep saying protein, higher in fiber here. So obviously the brown rice has got more fiber than your white rice, but look if you add lentils in. So if you're doing something like a dal, for example, you've got 3.5 grams of fiber in 1 cup of brown rice, which is pretty good considering you want to aim for 10 grams at each meal. But if you have a cup of red lentils, dried red lentils, you're adding 16 grams into that dal or curry or soup, for example. Frozen peas, fantastic. Peas, edamame beans, broad beans, any of those frozen pulses are absolutely brilliant. And maybe we would consider them to be higher fiber than a cup of broccoli. But again, it's all about balance. And I think the key thing to take away from this is not one is better than the other, but it's variety. And the more variety we have in our diet, the better. So if you've got a stir fry and you've got a cup of broccoli in it, and then you add in some frozen peas, you are upping your game there. So you're really adding more protein the more vegetables you can add. So if you've got a meal of your 30 grams or a cup of oats with a tablespoonful of chia seeds, tablespoonful of flax seeds, and 15 raspberries, you'll get 17 grams of fiber. Not bad for a way to start your day. And you could do that as an overnight oats, or you could do it as porridge. So I'm going to give you 10 suggestions on how you can up the ante with your fiber intake. But I just want to take you back to what I had said there about easing fiber into your diet. Sometimes when we increase fiber, our tummy can tell us all about it. So we might hear noises, you might get gurgling and burbling and all sorts of noises coming from your tummy. You might get stomach cramps and pains. So just go easy. Gently increase your fiber intake. And if you're one of the 90% of the population who don't get enough fiber, step it up very, very gradually. I'm not suggesting that this week, when we're putting on our focus on fiber, that you go all out with the fiber. Just slowly think about your fiber. Think about how you can increase both the soluble and the insoluble fiber. Also note that if you've been told to follow a low residue diet, that is a low fiber diet. So you need to be really cautious about that and follow any medical advice that you've been given by your medical team. So let's go for these ideas and see how many of them. Just what I'd love you to do is choose one thing that you're going to put your focus on this week. So you can guess what the homework is. It is, of course, getting more fiber on your plate, but I want you to think about how you're going to do that. So here's your 10 hot tips. 1, keep the skin on. So here's an example. On Sunday, Mother's Day, I was up with my mum and I was cooking Sunday dinner with my niece and nephew, who are, they're not little ones, they're 23 and 21. And my nephew was doing all the roast vegetables. I was almost standing in the background, kind of helping them out, which is how the tables have turned these days. But my nephew was doing the roast veg and he was saying, I'm going to keep the skin on these parsnips because it's got more fiber. So the message is getting through to the younger generation. And actually, I remember Jamie Oliver saying something years ago about if you keep the skin on your root veg when you roast them, they've got more flavor. So there's 2 reasons for keeping your skin on: more fiber, more flavor. So give your root veg a really good scrub. You can keep the skin on things like butternut squash, which is gorgeous when it's roasted with the skin on. Sweet potato, if you're doing that in a one-pot wonder, give it a good scrub. Keep the skin on your sweet potatoes. Carrot, parsnip, for example. So don't always reach for the peeler. think about, does that fruit or vegetable need peeled, or could I eat it with the skin on? Another brilliant example here are kiwi fruit. Kiwi fruits are packed full of soluble fibre, and they've got some insoluble too. And they are amazing for digestive support, and they're even better if you can eat them with the skins on. So the golden kiwis sometimes are a little easier if you don't really like the texture of the furry, fuzzy skin, but can you keep the skin on your fruit and vegetables? Could you add 1 or 2 tablespoonfuls of milled flaxseed to your diet, or chia seeds or hemp seeds, for example? If your seeds are milled, the seed is cracked open and you're getting more of the fiber, not just the fiber in the husk of that seed, but also right to the core of that seed. And that inside the seed is where you're getting the soluble fiber. The husk is more of the insoluble fiber. So remember, the soluble stuff is the stuff that helps with blood sugar balance, helps you feel fuller for longer, and the insoluble is the stuff that's going to help us with digestion. So could you sprinkle some flaxseed onto your overnight oats or your porridge? It might only be that you start with a teaspoon or a dessert spoonful. Could you put a little onto things like your soups, or add on top of something savoury? Could you make something this week that has got some lentils, beans, peas, or chickpeas in it? So are you going to do something like lentil soup or dal? Could you do maybe a chickpea curry? Could you have something like a stir fry with edamame beans in it, for example? Could you use hummus? That's another nice way to get your beans and your chickpeas into your diet. Could you swap one of your white refined carbohydrates to something that's a whole meal or a whole grain? So think about it like this. It might be that you've got a packet of rice in the cupboard and it's about to run out. Why not pick up some brown basmati next time? Or your pasta is on the shopping list. Check out either your wholemeal pasta, or if you want to go for a gluten-free alternative, look out for chickpea or red lentil pasta. Most of the supermarkets have that sort of pasta now, and it's really packed full of lots of beautiful fibre. Add nuts and seeds to breakfast. So I think today is, of course, St. Patrick's Day, which is the start of spring, and we're thinking about maybe having lighter and brighter food on our plate, as well as the lighter and brighter days. So if your breakfast is going to change, it might not, you might still be on porridge. If your breakfast is going to change over the spring, then maybe think about stuff like overnight oats with things like walnuts, chia seeds in there. Maybe putting a spoonful of ground almonds into your porridge, or the milled flaxseed into your porridge is another good way to do this too. Overnight oats is a brilliant way. We saw how much fibre there are in oats, but also if you add in your walnuts or your chopped hazelnuts or whatever kind of nuts and seeds you like, and maybe a little handful of dried fruit like some sultanas in there, maybe some grated apple, you are getting your day off to a fibre-packed start that's going to fill you up, keep you fueled, and keep you going for ages, especially when you think about what we did last week and bringing the protein in there through the milk and the nuts and seeds too. What about your snacks? Could you swap up, or could you crowd out the crisps? So maybe going for things like popcorn and nuts, maybe things like hummus and carrot sticks, maybe checking out, there's lots of really great little, if you go into that savoury aisle in the supermarket, you now find healthy alternatives like the Graze snacks. The supermarkets do their own versions of that, and they've got things like flavoured toasted beans. You can get the little corn snacks, they're like little corn kernels that are brilliant as well. And these are a really nice way of adding more fibre into your diet. What about the labels? So we talk a lot about sugar in the courses that I run, but what about fibre on your labels? Did you know that 6 grams of fibre per 100 grams would be classified as high fibre? So the way to think about this is pick up say you're in the biscuit aisle, pick up rich tea and digestives, or pick up something like Jaffa cakes and an oatmeal biscuit or an oat biscuit, and notice the difference in the fibre. These little tiny adjustments that you can make will slowly build more fibre onto your plate. You could do the same in the cereal aisle, in the rice and pasta aisle, wherever you are, just check out the fiber on the label and just get to know where you're bringing more fiber into your diet. And maybe look at different types of grains. So maybe move away from or incorporate other grains as well as your pasta and your rice. You can get brilliant little packs of ready cooked grains that you could use as the base for a salad, or you could mix in with your one pot wonders to add more fiber in there. Some of them come with flavors and some of them are just plain. So what about something like that? And please don't cancel carbohydrate from your diet. I've seen so many people recently going on a very low carbohydrate diet to the detriment of the fiber intake. So if you're reducing your carbs, consider where you're bringing more fiber in. Is it going to be that you're bringing more nuts and seeds? Is it going to be that you add in more beans and lentils, or more of the root vegetables? So really consider where you are getting fiber if you're taking something out of your diet. So I'm just going to just check in. I'll come back to your comments about your homework in just a second. But what I want to do now is show you a couple of examples of how you can get a meal that would be 10 grams of fiber. So remember, we're thinking about 30 grams a day. So if you're eating 3 meals a day, we want 10 grams at breakfast, 10 grams at lunch, 10 grams at dinner. And you've already seen how you can go over the 10 grams pretty easily with your grains and seeds at breakfast. But what about lunch? If you had a wholemeal pita with hummus, obviously it's got chickpeas in it, half an avocado, and lots of salad with things like your grated carrot and your green leafy vegetables, and maybe some peppers in there, maybe some sun-dried tomatoes, that will bounce you up to 10 grams of fiber. Or if you're making a stir fry for dinner tonight, put extra vegetables in there. So broccoli, sugar snap peas, carrots, peppers, onion, maybe a handful of frozen peas or edamame beans. Pop on top, just to serve it, your cashew nuts or your sesame seeds, and serve it with brown rice, and that will easily get you your 10 grams. So just to show you that with a few simple adjustments, you can build more fiber onto your plate really easily. That's going to satisfy you, keep you fueled, and help you to feel fuller and more sustained for longer. So, of course, our fiber for the week is our focus for the week, or fiber for the week too. Our focus for the week is focusing on fiber, considering how much fiber you are putting onto your plate. And there's a really good question here. So I'm going to answer the questions that have come up in the chat box. So the first one says, I think these have just come in. I'm going to do the one that's come in most recently. Is it okay to have more of the fiber in one meal and less in others? Yes, absolutely. So it might be, for example, that you're feeding a family and you know that no one else in your family is going to go for the whole grains. That's okay. So just manage your other 2 meals and see where you can get more fiber, or think about your snacks. So it might be that you have something like oat cakes and peanut butter. That will give you an extra little pop of fiber. Or maybe you have something like those kiwis with the skin on and put it in some yogurt. That would give you some fiber too. So it doesn't have to be spread evenly. Good question. Are there any particular grains to use to replace rice, e.g. in a curry? Yes, I am going to. Let's go to Tesco. So let me just share my other screen for a second. This is going to bring up milled flaxseed, but we'll go to the grains in a second. So share. Right, so if we do you see things like, if you're doing it with a curry, what might be quite good? Oh, that's bringing us on. That's bringing us up. Dog food. We definitely do not want that. But you see things like this. You see the way this one has got a mixture. Let's just go into the ingredients of this actually. So this has got wheat berries, red rice, freekeh, black barley, and quinoa. They're grains that maybe are not normally in your diet, and this is a lovely way of adding extra fiber. So let's just go into our nutrition. your fiber. It's got 4 grams per 100 grams. So it's lovely. It's not considered high fiber, but it's really nudging up there. But that would be really good. And actually that is already cooked for you. So you could do your quick curry, maybe put your chickpeas in there for a little extra fiber. And that's going to be lovely with your curry. Or something like quinoa would also be really great too. Okay, let me see if there's anything else. Are roasted or salted nuts okay as a source of fiber and protein, or does the salt content make them worse overall? I would generally suggest that you go for unsalted and unroasted because of the salt content, because obviously we don't want too much salt in our diet because of high blood pressure, for example. So you're better off going for ones that are not salted or roasted. Oh, this is a really great one. It says, I've purchased psyllium husk powder. It's advised to have 2.5 scoops a day. Doesn't matter when I take it. It's better to have before meals. Angela, I would just encourage you to go half a scoop to start off with. So go really low, because if you take that amount of fiber in one go, your belly's going to tell you about it. So go really low with it and build your tolerance up very slowly. Psyllium is a brilliant source of fiber, and it's really great to put in. You can mix it into curries and things like that. Not curries, into oats and things like that. You could put it in curries, but so I would mix it in with food. I struggle with digesting a lot of beans, pulses, brassicas. I tend to follow a low FODMAP diet. Are there any low FODMAP but high fiber options? Yeah, take out, obviously, if you struggle with the beans and lentils, take them out temporarily. Hopefully you're on a gut healing program that's going to support you and help you be able to digest those foods more easily. And then look to things like your grains, and also your seeds are a brilliant source of fiber, and root vegetables. Okay, I think there's lots of questions in here actually, Lisa, but I'm hopefully getting, let me see where we are. I'm getting through most of them. Is there any that I've missed?
I think, Jane, if I just join you for a minute, I think we had quite a lot of comments early on about what people had tried to do from last week, which was great. So what has happened is those comments have gone in as a reply to Tina's initial message. So I'm going to open them up now and I can see them. So we've got lots of people who did things. Someone who added cottage cheese for the first time in ages. So I think that was something you did mention. Cottage cheese, a good source of protein. We've had a couple of people who have tried to sort of cut back in terms of their eating window. So someone starting around 9 and then not eating after 8. So just about 11-hour window. Someone else similarly not eating after 7 p.m. So lots of people taking on those ideas, and someone else saying they're really focusing on making sure they have protein at every meal, which happily they found relatively easy. So that was good.
Oh, lovely. Good.
Someone else mentions here, Jane, switching their snacks around. So having a snack a little bit in the afternoon before dinner rather than starting to snack later, and that means it stopped the energy dips. So a more level blood sugar and energy levels. So that's quite nice. So lots of comments like that of people who have been doing the bits and pieces that you suggested. There might be another couple of questions have come up. Yeah, up at the top there, someone else has said, can you remind us how much protein we should be thinking about aiming for in a day, Jane?
Yeah, so ideally you want to be aiming for somewhere between, most of us, everybody is different and have slightly different protein requirements. But for most people, if you're putting it into an app like MyFitnessPal, you want to aim for around about 25 to 30 grams of protein at each meal. But everybody has got slightly different protein requirements, but that's as a bit of a gauge, 25 to 30. If you can hit that, you're doing fantastic with your protein. But I love those comments that came in about the cottage cheese. I love that idea about moving the snack from the evening to the afternoon. So you're using your food as fuel to keep your energy sustained. Brilliant. Love it.
Really nice ideas. I'm a little bit gutted, Jane, to say to you and everybody here, I'm not going to be with you next week. I'm not going to hear how it all finishes up with everybody's comments. But I love that we've got quite a nice community going here with lots of people who've been joining every week. Please do continue to do that. I'm just going to share the screen to remind you of what's still to come from Jane through the remainder of this year, as we almost are at the end of this session now. So of course next week we've got part 4, the final part of the 4-week reset. So do please join for that. If you haven't already signed up, you're going to find the login details on our website, so get that one into your calendars. And then lots more as we go through the year with Jane. Retirement planning session, Feed Your Mind, we're highlighting that in Mental Health Awareness Week. Down towards the bottom, we've got hybrid work working. I think that affects a lot of civil servants now. So it might be a little bit more chaotic. We're not always eating at work. We're not always eating at home. A little mixture of the two. So we've got some great sessions coming up with Jane. Please do register and join into those if you can. Don't forget always that our sessions are recorded, so you'll be able to watch them back on demand if you're not able to join live on the day. Just a little extra slide that we've popped in this time, which we haven't had before. If you would like to connect with the charity on LinkedIn, please use the QR code right now, or if it disappears too quickly for you to grab your phone, don't forget you can watch this back and grab that QR code off. But join us on our socials as well. And finally, a reminder that you can, of course, contact Jane. So that's her website is up there. Lots of recipe ideas, lots of great information on there, as well as Jane's socials. And I think Tina put into the chat box, if you haven't already got the 4-week reset worksheet that goes along with this whole program, just send me an email. My details are in the chat now, lisa.colville@cfcs.org.uk, and I'll get that sent out to you. But for now, Jane, thank you again for a fabulous session. Tina, thank you for everything you did behind the scenes, and thank you to the lovely audience for joining us today. Jane will be back next week with my colleague Andrew. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. See you next week.